Welcome, councillors, members of the public and staff. I declare the meeting open at 6:35 p.m, which is the City Planning and Environment Committee of Bayside Council, 5th of August 2026. Everyone at this meeting is reminded to conduct themselves in a polite and professional manner, keep communication factual, use appropriate language and tone. Do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks. I also ask councillors to observe the requirements under Code of Meeting Practice and Meeting Etiquette. All present are reminded that the YouTube video recording is an official record of council and will be accessible via YouTube in accordance with the Code of Meeting Practice. No other recordings are permitted, and all present should ensure that there are no video recordings, audio recordings or photographs taken. In case of emergency, please follow the instructions of council staff. Agenda item number 1 is our acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the Bidjigal clan, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and work, and acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to elders past and present. We've got 2 leave of absence already endorsed by council, which is Councillor Douglas and Councillor Curry. Are there any other apologies? No other apologies. Thank you. Item number 3 is our disclosures of interest. Is any councillor present has a disclosure to make tonight? There are no disclosures of interest. Item number 4 is our minutes of the previous meeting. If 2 councillors who are present, Councillor Kasim and Councillor Barlow, all those in favour say aye. I'll declare that carried. Thank you. There are no items by exception, and we can just move straight into reports. The first being CPE 26.019, which is the endorsement of draft submission about the Cogra Golf Club. You can have a summary on that one, please. Sorry, just Councillor Kasim, were you here at the last meeting? I don't think.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
That's not according to this. So,
apologies, so not me.
that I just have to recommit that to Councillor Strong and Councillor Barlow for the confirmation of the previous meeting minutes. No, that's okay. Sorry, my apologies. Okay, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. The first item is in relation to a state significant development proposal for the former Cogra Golf Course, sometimes referred to as Cook's Cove development. Just a little bit of background. The golf club is shown there in the red outline, and the site also includes Pemulwuy Park, which is owned by council in the sort of bottom left-hand corner of that red circled area there. The land was rezoned in May 2025, and that rezoning allows logistics development as well as some retail, office and some other related uses in there. The application that we've just made the submission on is the first that followed that rezoning. It's a state significant application, and so the assessment and the determination will be done by the state government. Council has an opportunity, as other stakeholders do, to make a submission at this stage in the process, and that's what we've done. Essentially we've submitted that within the deadline that we were given, and it's now in front of you tonight and council in case you want to add or change anything in there, and we will then confirm that with the department. The proposal in this application is a concept master plan for the entire site, and then a detailed approval for the first stage. You can see there a block model. Essentially, we're talking about very large warehouse buildings on the site, and then some other retail and ancillary uses as well. The heights in the concept plan go up to the equivalent of 21 residential levels, around about 70 metres in height. We have an application in, a local application in for demolition and earthworks, and then this one would follow that in terms of the buildings starting to go ahead. There's actually 2 schemes that are proposed in the concept plan, and so the proponent has the flexibility to go with either. One of them, shown on the left there, is a full logistics scheme. So that's essentially a multi-level warehousing over the entire site. These are buildings that large trucks would be able to drive up over around 5 levels. and they'd be sort of high-tech warehouse related to the airport and the seaport. The alternate scheme, which is the one on the right, a little hard to make the difference out. It shows the building on the bottom there to be a data centre, although that could be part of either scheme. But the main difference is up near the bridge over the Cooks River there. You'll see some smaller buildings in the scheme on the right. So they are a hotel, some office and some retail. And so this scheme has a different frontage, I guess, to Marsh Street and a bit more of a diversity of uses. So this is looking at it from across the Cooks River, looking south. The scheme on the left is a logistics scheme, so you can see that they're just large buildings there, fairly contiguous. The one on the right shows the alternate scheme, which includes what was referred to as the Fig Tree Plaza. So that was kind of like an outdoor dining, sort of semi-public open space, and then some more fine-grained buildings there. And later in the submission, you'll see that the alternate uses scheme is the one that we think should be approved, just because it provides that better public amenity along the proposed foreshore walkway and a finer grain of buildings to Marsh Street as well. The submission, which you'll see attached, is quite long. I think it's in the order of 40 pages, 50 pages. So just a quick summary of some of the key issues that we've raised in the submission. So the framework, as I said, was just put in place. The site was just rezoned in the middle of 2025, and it set building heights. This proposal is seeking a variation to those heights, which have only just been put in place. The variation is an additional 19 metres over the height limit. And that's primarily because they're seeking higher floor-to-ceiling heights in the warehouse spaces. So the same number of levels, but a few metres added onto each level. So our concerns around that are just the scale of the buildings that are going to be created there, and the visual impact that they will have, and the inconsistency of what's around it. There's also an issue of the shadowing that will cause over Pemulwuy Park, which will be reopened to the community once the M6 project is finished. Just to give you some idea, the heights of the buildings proposed here are the same as the highest buildings on the Bill Berger development on the Princes Highway in Eden Street and Arncliffe, close by. But of course, the footprints of them are much larger. So that's the kind of scale of building that we're looking at. Public domain wise, again, an issue about shadowing of Pemulwuy Park and that the interface there, there'll be very large buildings against our park. Also along the foreshore, we have a foreshore public cycleway and pedestrian path, which is between 20 and 40 metres wide, but these buildings are going to be very large, sitting right alongside of that, and we're concerned about that interface. And also the interface to Marsh Street. As I said, we'd prefer to have some finer grained, smaller buildings there and some public space rather than the warehouses coming all the way up to Marsh Street. Planning controls and design excellence. Our LEP has a requirement for a development control plan to be developed for the site, which will provide that more detailed level of planning controls. The proponent is not proposing to do that. They have a design strategy or design guideline that they're putting in place, and our view is that's a little bit too weak. We'd rather see them commit to a DCP to make sure these buildings do give a good outcome when they're built. Transport. And our preferred outcome, there are still some traffic issues that remain unresolved. We're sort of down more into the detail now with this application, looking at those things, and we've raised a number of those sorts of issues in our submission. As I mentioned, we do have a preference for that alternate scheme. Landscape flooding and council's land. This is perhaps the most important issue that we're flagging. The proposal is essentially to fill the site so that it's above the flood level. This is the development site. And what that would result in is water that currently flows over that land will be diverted and down through Pemulwuy Park, which is council's land. And the scheme relies on having that overland flow path through council's land. The analysis that we now have in terms of what that flooding will look like shows that it will be quite deep and fast moving, and that has a number of impacts on council's land, which we're not happy with at this point in time. Just to delve into that issue a little further, you can see the sort of pink red colour there is the development site. The green is Pemulwuy Park, which is owned by council. The purple snake running through there is essentially the overland flow path. It's 60 metres wide. It's fairly shallow, but even during a reasonably regular rain event, the one that we might have every couple of years, the water running down there could be up to a metre deep and moving quite quickly. So that will have quite an impact on the utility of Pemaway Park. We're concerned about safety of people that might be in there, and also what that means after the rain event is finished, how long it stays wet, what it means for us to be able to get access into there for maintenance and get vehicles in there to empty garbage bins and the like. So that's an issue that is certainly unresolved at this stage. It transfers the risk onto council, and it also means that the work that the M6 project was going to leave for the community will have to be modified to get that overland flow path to work. So at this point in time, council as the owner of that land has not issued its owner's consent to the application. So we do have that leverage, I guess, in this with this issue in particular, in that the application can't be approved involving council's land as it does with the overland flow path until council gives its consent as the owner. So at the same time, the community had the opportunity to make submissions on this application. There's around 655 submissions received by Department of Planning. The key issues that the community are raising are around the data centre. There's concern about the electricity and water consumption and environmental impacts associated with that. Concern about the environmental impact on the Cooks River. Concern about the scale of the buildings and the excessive form. Flooding, the impact on open space. Access issues, which are primarily to do with roads, active transport, and the impact on the park. So there's some fairly strong alignment there with the issues that we've raised in our submission. So as I mentioned, we made our submission, and we'll confirm that with the department once the council's had a chance to have a look at it. And we're still keen to work with the proponent and the Department of Planning. The site is zoned for this kind of development. It's important to support the airport and the seaport to have these kind of uses there. It's just that there are some issues, as I've just spoken to, that we think need to be resolved. So we're committed to trying to work through those and get it to a point where we think it's a good outcome for everybody. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for the summary. Can I have a mover for that? Councillor Strong, Councillor Kassim.
I can.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Oh, any speakers?
Yes.
Councillor Kassim.
So, first of all, thank you very much, Mr. Barber and your team. I think it was an excellent report, really, detailed. I hope that the community does actually read it, because I think it does a lot of justice, really, to the work of the serious work which council's undertaken about this. In particular, I think that it raises really important issues, as you say, about flooding and including long-term cost for our council if we were to have to bear, having to fix things continuously, plus, of course, the long-term disbenefit for residents to not have use of a flooded park. So I think you're absolutely right in doing that. I also liked the detail in the submission regarding protection of the very mature Moreton figs and the ponds, the existing ponds. I was interested to hear, for example, that no mention was made of this. I think there was mention of the frogs as being endangered, but I understand actually that white-crested seagulls have been found flying from the site, which is unusual, and they're a bird which probably needs to be protected as well. I wouldn't be surprised, I mean, how do we know we're not allowed on the site, but I wouldn't be surprised if those birds are actually using the ponds. And I think that actually does bear some further investigation itself. It's not mentioned in the submission currently, but I think it probably is worth someone looking into that, because apparently those birds have been seen to be flying from that direction. Don't know where else they'd be coming from. So that's another good reason to support what you've said about ponds. I guess the major other thing is the overshadowing and the fact that these buildings are, as you say, incredibly bulky and actually just block the view to the river. So, I mean, I can see, who owns what in your picture there, but I don't know whether any thought was ever given, whether there is any potential for this, almost for a land swap, so that Pemulwuy Park became, like, basically addressed the water, so that we had a proper swathe of park which is directly in front of the water, and that I mean, the really offending building is the Block C. That's the building which nobody likes, because that's the one they're talking about being a data centre. Yeah, there's all these other problems with it. But also Block C is the one which is blocking the view, frankly. It's like without Block C, it wouldn't be too bad, especially as you put, and I agree with you entirely, alternative uses, the alternative uses scenario is immeasurably better than the entirely logistics scenario, let alone the logistics plus data scenario. But Block C is the problem. And so I just wonder whether there's any precedent at all for sort of giving away some of our land, which is behind. So there's just this row. If we're going to have a row of logistics, we could just have a row of logistics and, whatever that building, that Block C becomes, in a row, and then a lovely park on the side. So that's, I guess, my first question, if there's ever been any thought of that. And I guess my second question, and this is really pie in the sky, but you guys are experts, not me, is whether, again, there's any precedent for building in such a way that the building is lifted so that water can in fact flow, underneath. I mean, we're not in Queensland, but everyone knows Queensland. That's the way Queenslanders operate. I come from Southeast Asia, and I'm used to that sort of thing too. You just you go, well, there's flooding happening here, so let's just build according to what happens naturally here, and we let the water do its thing and then soak into the ground, rather than creating massive, high-speed currents. So now that might be really difficult, obviously, for a several-storey building, but I'm asking that question, I guess.
Through you, Chair, yeah, in terms of a land swap, that is something that we have spoken about over a number of years. It's still, the proponent is still open to it, but I guess the further the scheme goes along, the more difficult that will be, particularly from their point of view, in terms of zoning having to be changed, approvals having to be changed. So yeah, I agree with you. It may have given us a better outcome, and it's something that we've certainly said from council's point of view we'd rather have more river frontage. But yeah, in the end, it's really the proponent who would need to come forward and agree to that or offer that. Yeah, in terms of flooding, the buildings will be used for freight, essentially. They'll be secured because some of them will probably be customs, like secured buildings. So they're fairly sensitive, I guess, in terms of, wanting to protect them. And so, yeah, I think the idea of lifting the buildings would be an issue in terms of safety because there'll be people working in there and they'll be stuck, I guess. So, yeah, I think filling the site is probably the only thing that would be acceptable to the proponent. And also the SES, when the land was being rezoned, had quite a heavy involvement to make sure that the site could be safely occupied. What we are looking at, though, what we have mentioned to the proponent is to look at a way to channelise the water through their site for the more common rain events, through culverts or pipes under the ground, and then only during the one in the sort of 50-year occurrence, 100-year occurrence events would there be water that couldn't fit into that infrastructure that might come through the park. those events are infrequent, and when they happen, there's water everywhere. It's been raining for a week. No one's in the park. That's not such an issue. It's the 1 in 5 year events that we might get more frequently that we don't want that sort of volume of water going through our park. So
Yeah, and I did see that, and it looked very good and detailed. What you've written there. So are you saying that there's no way that we could even include in this submission a repeat that we would be, publicly repeat? We would be very happy to look at land swaps in order to actually fulfil what as the submission points out is one of the conditions, which is to enhance public domain benefit for residents, because that would make a huge difference to public benefit.
through you, Chair, what we have done where council has more to add is made a supplementary submission, so we can certainly reinforce anything that councillors want to put emphasis on, including that by way of a supplementary submission.
Thank you.
Just on that, that's actually something that I thought it's come up before, but I'm hugely supportive of as well. And it would be worthwhile just saying, well, hey, what do you want? Like, it doesn't have to be one for one. They can give something up, give them more than we're getting. But if we can retain that foreshore, sorry, my brain's not working too well tonight. I think that would be more acceptable, not only for the community getting that benefit. So even if it's a 60-40 swap in their favour, for example, that's better, and it's set back, and they can do what they want with the bulk and this. Well, not open slather, but they can have more flexibility with the bulk and the scale. But we're protecting not only for our community, but for the communities that could come and visit. And Councillor Strong's put forward motions before about the river and the water and the tunnel, all that sort of stuff. So it could really be something that I know it's getting right at the pointy end, but I think if it's sent in the form of a supplementary submission to say, hey, come to us with something and we'll run up the flagpole, it's worth having that discussion. Yeah.
Would you like to add that as a number two
Yeah.
for recommendation tonight?
Yeah.
And put it on the public record?
Definitely.
That council includes a supplementary submission in relation to a land swap negotiation or discussion.
And what about writing to the proponent,
Yes.
as well as doing a submission?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yep.
But to write,
Yes.
putting forward a formal suggestion that a land swap be explored.
Absolutely. And I think in that case, I think it would be reasonable to actually contextualise that by indicating, as you have, that the 655 submissions, have strengthened our resolve to do this, and that we think that may actually assist with social licence. I think there has to be a specific discussion of social licence here, because I don't think that there is social licence for this proposal as it is, particularly for the data centre, but for the proposal as it's shaped up with the heights, with what it's going to do for views, for a lot of people in Walleye Creek, like for a lot of things. And so I think we need to specifically say that, and hopefully it will assist the proponents to realise the benefit of changing their proposal.
Yeah, they've completely ignored the new regulations that have just been put in. They just said, oh, okay, thanks, but we're just whatever. And they're just doing what they want. So I think this is a little bit of an olive branch to say, hey, we don't like it, and probably 650 others don't like it. Maybe there's 5-4 and 650. Anyway, but this actually says, hey, we are supportive. We know that it's inevitable. There is going to be some kind of development. So maybe we can talk about just reversing it, and you have this bit and we have that bit. And I think to Councillor Kasim's point, it does actually have social licence. It's going to be even though it's not, ideally just be a golf course and a park, right? That's never going to happen. But he would say, okay, well, we've got this, it's inevitable. However, we've also got now this park or this access, which is okay, because it's a social licence thing. So yeah, I think it's good idea to explore. Thanks, Councillor Strong.
Most things have been articulated tonight from Councillor Morrissey and Kasim. I agree with it. Has the submission pushed back strongly enough particularly on the data centre aspect of it, with concern of the massive amount of submissions? I think, if we could lose the data centre, that's a good compromise, and then do the rest of it. So I'm just wondering, have we strongly worded it enough to push back against this very unpopular? It's become one of the biggest issues around is data centres, and the local people that I've spoken to are all dead against it.
Through you, Chair, the submission isn't particularly strong on that issue, and mainly because generally through the DA process, things like energy and water use, which I think are the main objections people have, are not considered, like they're not really high matters for consideration. It's more like traffic and overshadowing and those kind of things are given more weight, I guess, under the planning legislation. But it's certainly something that we can add to another submission to reinforce that. It is mentioned in there. But yeah, generally those things are, solutions can be found to them. Power and water supply can be found, and so the DA process is not really. We do have things like BASICs, which is looks at energy and water use in residential buildings, but there's really nothing much in the planning framework that deals with power consumption of a data centre in particular. So we haven't said a lot about that, but we can certainly reinforce that in the supplementary.
Yeah, I've noticed federally they're bringing in different regulations with data centres. Bring your own power, for example. So I guess we should keep an eye on that.
Okay.
Yeah, just taking up that point, if I might. One thing, the submission does go through a number of items, which it says, it lists a number of items, but one item it doesn't mention is heat in terms of an impact. And I am not an expert on this at all, but I have been told that there is a significant ambient heat impact. I've been told as much as 6% or something quite large. So I can't believe that really, but it sounds terrible. But I would appreciate it if someone could investigate that, and if it is, and if there is evidence that these sorts of things can have a significant heat impact. Well, obviously that is an impact we don't want to have. We've got adjacent residential areas here. The other thing which I would love to have in there as an additional as a supplementary is I do see this as an opportunity to actually attempt a implementation of a proposal which was passed last year with regard to taking opportunities with industrial development applications which are large, which have a large surface area, to see if they may look at the possibility of rooftop recreation spaces. So as you know, that was passed last year. It's something I put forward. And I mean, these buildings are basically boxes. That's what they are. They're a series of boxes. They're a series of large boxes. And I do think that that they offer an opportunity. If the top of them was all made into, playing fields of one sort or another, that could, in fact, go quite a long way to addressing the shortage of sporting fields that we have in this LGA. So I would like to add a number 3, which is along those lines, that in the supplementary submission we do also invite the proponents to consider that, again, with a view to them understanding that it would make a difference in terms of social licence, because the community likes sport, basically. They'd appreciate it. And as you know, if there's objections to it, I guess my proposal is that there be a separate, that you can do this from scratch when you've got new buildings. You actually have external entrances. So if there's any concerns about movement of cars and, lack of safety and pedestrians and all this sort of stuff, if you design it properly, you design your separate external lift, so that or lifts probably, there'd have to be more than one of them, so that people could access the top level in order to get there safely. So, thank you.
Just a question was, when we had the last Cook's Code proposal with the warehouses and we fought tooth and nail to get, around the corridor of the river, are we getting the same back, or is it, they haven't altered that at all?
Through your chair, no, that stays the same. So yeah, it's 20 metres up the sort of northern end, and then it broadens out to 40 metres width down the southern end. It has a separate boardwalk for pedestrians and then a cycleway.
As long as we haven't lost that apart.
Just one more question. Can council have the power to sort of forbid that the data centre takes water out of the Cooks River or puts water back into it through its process?
Through your chair, no, we don't control the water in the Cooks River. That it would be a state government authority, probably Water New South Wales. Yep.
Okay, yeah, and just going back to where we started, I think it was an outstanding report. There was a lot, 40 pages or thereabouts. So the work that was put into it is testament to the skill and dedication of our staff, and it's greatly appreciated, because without that, we'd be here for a lot longer debating and adding and changing and things. So it's a very solid foundation. So well done to the team who's done that. If you can pass that on from the committee, to be appreciated. Okay, councillors, we've had number 1, we've added number 2 and 3. All those in favour say aye. And I'm for as well. I'll declare that carried. Thank you. The next one is the CP 26018, which is the reclassification of Walton Street, Sandringham land strip. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chair. This is a fairly straightforward one, I think. So the proposal here was just to reclassify the land from community to operational land under the Local Government Act. And that is essentially to allow the land to be sold. And I'll come back to the history of it all. You can see on the right-hand side there, the land in question in the red. It's a drainage reserve. It has pipes underneath it. Pedestrians can use it, although there's no path there. So the owner of the property, the triangular property, to the left-hand side of it, approached council a number of years ago to see if council was interested in selling the land. And at the time, council agreed to that. And so we're really just going through the process now that has to be gone through to enable that sale to take place. So in terms of, so the reclassification from community land is essentially an amendment to council's LEP. So it follows the same process as rezoning, for example. So the Bayside Local Planning Panel supported the proposal, and it came up to committee and council in May last year, and it was supported by council to go off to the Department of Planning seeking permission for exhibition. And that was given, and the exhibition happened in through April and May this year for 20 days. There's also a requirement for a public hearing where land is going to be reclassified from community to operational. So that public hearing was scheduled. There was nobody in attendance at that, but we've been through that entire process. So during the public exhibition period, we received 6 submissions. There were no state agency submissions. You can see some of the stats there in terms of number of page views and the like that we had. So there was a reasonable level of engagement for something that's fairly contained. As I said, the public hearing was held in the library, but there was no members of the public attended that. So the submissions that we received, potential closure of the pedestrian walkway. We had a look at this previously, and you can see from that photo that I showed just before, that it doesn't really offer an enormous benefit to the community as a pedestrian way. It doesn't provide really a significant shortcut or any great amenity. It's between two two fences, essentially, a very narrow corridor. So we don't feel like that's an issue that should prevent this going ahead. The land valuation, so there was a valuation undertaken back when there was agreement reached with a neighbour, and so that side of it has been taken care of already. That's just based on a market value done by a registered valuer. The time frame and clarifications. So there was some people were just a little bit unclear about the process, and a lot of the matters that were raised were considered previously by council in terms of agreeing to sell the land, and just the impact on it as a piece of council infrastructure. So there will be an easement created over the land before it's sold, and that will allow council to go in and maintain the underground stormwater pipes if the need ever arises. So we don't really lose anything there in terms of the ability to access that infrastructure. So following that exhibition period, we're not recommending that there be any changes to the proposal, and that it proceeds through to finalisation. And then once land is reclassified, we can go ahead with the sale to the adjoining owner. Thanks, Chair.
Excellent. Thank you. Have a mover. No, Councillor Barlow, seconded Councillor Kassim. Is there any discussion? Just moving it. Okay. All those in favour say aye. I'll declare that carried. Thank you. Councillors, we have one confidential report. Move the council closes the meeting. And then, Jim, do you want to read out? Oh, it's before us though. The item before us in confidential is that the draft mascot master plan be publicly exhibited. The member for Heffron has been briefed already. The results of the community engagement is going to be reported back to council in early 2027, and the engagement plan will be placed on the councillor portal 7 days prior to commencement, which will facilitate councillor feedback before go live. Okay, that's it for this meeting, councillors. I'll declare the meeting closed at 7:50 p.m. Meeting open at 7:55 p.m, which is the City Works and Assets Committee of Bayside Council, 5th of August 2026. Everybody at this meeting is reminded to conduct themselves in a polite and professional manner, keep communication factual, use appropriate language and tone. Do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks. I also ask councillors to observe the requirements under the Code of Meeting Practice and Meeting Etiquette. All present are reminded that the YouTube video recording is an official record of council and will be accessible via YouTube in accordance with the Code of Meeting Practice. No other video recordings are permitted, and all present should ensure there are no video recordings, audio recordings or photographs taken. In case of emergency, please follow the instructions of council staff. Item number 1 is our acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the Bidjigal clan, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and work, and acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to elders past and present. Apologies. We've got leave of absence from councillors Douglas and Curry already. Is there any other apologies? No, everyone else is here. Thank you. Disclosures of interest. Is there any councillor wish to disclose any interest tonight? No disclosures of interest received. Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. If I can ask 2 councillors present to confirm that. Councillor Barlow, Councillor Strong. All those in favour say aye. I'll declare that carried. There's no items by exception tonight. We'll move on to the reports. The first being CWA 26.030, response to the notice of motion for Lime Bikes. Have a presentation on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So the notice of motion that we're responding to is on the screen there. So that was around council prioritising preparation for policy to manage shared e-bikes once the state government finalises its framework and guidelines, and council making a submission, which is essentially on those guidelines on micromobility. So I guess we're just providing a bit of an update on the status of where all of these changes are up to. Essentially, the increased number of share bikes around the inner suburbs led the state government to undertake some legislative reform. Currently or previously, there wasn't really a lot in place to manage e-bikes, and they were becoming a problem in terms of where they were parked in particular. And so there's been a consultation undertaken on a range of legislation reforms and some new guidelines to manage shared e-bikes. Council did make a submission when that was open, and these are the key issues that we raised in there. So some clearer allocation of responsibilities for enforcement, including the distinction between user offences, operator non-compliance, and council's role in managing all of that. Stronger obligations on the operators to actively manage parking, including rebalancing fleet, so that's moving bikes around from where they accumulate, servicing hotspots, and responding within enforceable timeframes. A more certain way to recover cost, particularly so councils can have some resource to deal with bikes that are abandoned or not managed properly. So the compliance costs and administration costs there, and also to provide the infrastructure to create better places for the bikes to be parked. A more practical parking model, one that prioritises marked or otherwise clearly identified parking, particularly around train stations and town centres. Better clarity on risk allocation, indemnity and insurance, including what protections apply to councils once an operator is approved by the state. And finally, implementation support for councils, including training of rangers, standard templates, management of access onto their digital platform where we can extract data, grants and operational guidance before the full rollout of the new guidelines. So the government has outlined its strategy. So there is legislation as well as guidelines, and they're saying that they will be in place by the end of this calendar year. The framework does seek to set minimum standards for devices, so that's around the safety of them for users, to prioritise designated parking, particularly in town centres and near transport hubs, developing a more accountable agreement for operators. And it does also include funding for councils to support the implementation of all of these new measures. So council, transport and selected councils are piloting designated parking areas. And you might recall a report came up to council recently looking at some parking in Wallow Creek and around Mascot Station. So they're areas that will be marked on the ground for share e-bike parking. So those are proceeding now. That I understand that Transport has engaged a contractor to do the line marking, and that should roll out fairly soon. The government's also announced a grant scheme to help councils prepare. We can apply for up to $200,000 to establish more marked parking bays and other bike infrastructure. So when those grants come out, we'll definitely make an application for that. I think we missed a slide here somewhere. Don't know why it's not there. Another feature of it is that there will be an additional charge on trips taken on shared e-bikes. So there'll be an 80-cent fee per trip. Transport will retain 60 cents of that fee, and councils will be entitled to 20 cents per trip that originates in their local government area. So for us, we think, based on the data that we can see, that will be between $8,000 and $9,000 a month in revenue for council, and that will help us to fund enforcement activities, community education, help pay for ranges, just those ongoing costs with managing e-bikes. So by and large, the new arrangements will certainly be positive. We're looking at more areas for dedicated bike parking, so we'll come back to you with some more suggestions around where they might be. There is also the ability to create slow zones, so their bikes will be by GPS. They will be speed limited when they enter into certain zones. So areas where there's high pedestrian activity or around the town centres, they'll be slowed down to a preset speed. And so we're working to identify where those areas are in Bayside as well. So the guidelines are not out yet, but we've kind of seen the draft of them, so we're sort of trying to get ahead of that, and so we're ready to respond once that framework is finalised. So the recommendation was that council essentially just receives notes the update and our submission, and that the council notes that we're working with the e-bike operators and Transport already to try and be ready for when the changes come in toward the end of the year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. If you have a mover for that, please. Councillor Kassim, seconded Councillor Strong. Any discussion? Councillor Strong.
When I was on the line bike, so I noticed the slowdown. Does the slowdown zone have to be working with the council? Maybe they've already done that there. Also, geo fencing where I can't park it here, but I'm still paying. Where do I go? I go there.
Yep.
And you're keen to find the right place because then it can let you stop paying for it.
Yeah, through you, Chair, both of those things will be within council's control, so we'll be able to set those areas, and then the operators have to abide by them.
Yeah, that's great. And I presume that the reference you're making there to us having immediate access to the data so we can see whether or not they're actually complying in terms of picking it up quickly, etc.
Yeah, through you, Chair, it will also be helpful for us in identifying, where the volume is, where people want to go, where they want to park. Then that'll help us kind of respond by, setting up the areas that we need to set up. If there's safety issues or speeding issues, we'll have access to all that information.
Yeah, I mean, I see this really as an opportunity as well as a bane. It's a bane in residential areas. I mean, that's really the problem, and I guess that's the question. We're setting up these zones where people can park in public places, but the reality is that the hirers are hiring it so they can get home. That's what they're doing. And so I feel like we need to find ways to create parking spots. I don't know if you can do it on the end of every street sort of thing, but, like somewhere so that people can actually get home, do what they want to do, park it where they're supposed to park it, and then walk 10, 20 metres to their home or something. Because if not, we're still going to have them littering all over our, nature strips.
Through you, Chair, part of the way to manage that is there'll be, in the new suite of documents, there'll be requirements in terms of how long they can remain in one location, and they can tell that by GPS how long a bike has been there. So if someone's parked one in front of someone's house, one will be able to remain there for, I'm not sure what it will be, maybe 24 hours. and then the operator has to go on, they drive around in vans and they pick them up and they'll take them back to the station. So
But it's
It
still a
won't deal with the
mess. Just to
problem,
leave
yeah.
it for 24 hours is still a mess. I feel like if people want to put it on their own property, then they can rent it. They can rent it overnight and put it on their own property. But to have it just littering on the nature strip is I don't think it's acceptable to residents really to have that, because it's just going to grow.
Councillor
Yeah.
Poulos?
Just to add to that, it's hazardous. So coming here this evening, I saw half a dozen bikes parked outside of one property on the footpath, and it becomes a nuisance from the perspective of people trying to get through on the footpaths, prams, wheelchairs, whatever. I think more control needs to be placed on where they can be left, and obviously the monitoring and the compliance aspect of the collection of these bikes. And it becomes a burden on council, obviously, having to police it. But yeah, I think the policy needs to be quite firm in the repercussions of what happens if they are left unattended for a certain period of time.
Yeah, and I think the period of time is not 24 hours. I think it's less. But
I don't think that's realistic.
but
Yeah,
but
they're going to
well,
be state government
well,
regulations.
or
as well, so-
or as I say, that people can, you can park it on your own land, and you'll just pay something more to do it. The opportunity side of this, I think, is really around our bike paths, and whether or not, I mean, obviously this is going to help us to, hopefully, it maybe helps to get usage rates if we can see all the we'll get all the data on who's riding on our cycleways, which is a great thing. But I wonder if this goes to my point about, can we set up other spots apart from in town centres? Like, we've got these cycleways anyway. Can we think about other places along our cycleways where we can put parking spots for line bikes? Because that's likely to be, not so inconvenient for people. It encourages people to use our existing infrastructure, gets them off ordinary roads, etc., because they're on cycleways. So I'm wondering if that's something which we could look into.
Through your chair, the dedication of or designation of spaces for parking is something that is going to be left with councils to do. And once we understand the data a little bit more, that will also help. We'll know where people want to go and where they want to stop. I
think they're also-
that.
I mean, point two here is that we'll work on our local policies once the statewide. We've got to start at the state level and then work on our own one. So let's just, we can't build Rome in a day. But I also think we need to, there has to be a notice on the operators, right? They've got this problem, it's their business model and it's their cash, and we're getting 20 cents per ride. Like, okay, thank you. But that's not going to pay to buy a part of someone's nature strip or buy in front of a commercial property where we have to acquire land. So that's where the operators, as a industry, they should be. It's almost like a contributions plan where we can go and buy even some disused street. The shops where there never any rents. No one ever rents the shops in these commercial areas around the Mascot area. Why don't they be converted into garage and things? However, but the operators need to fund that, not council and ratepayers. So that's, I think, where the conversation can arise. I think this is a good first step to have a statewide framework which we can then build upon and work with operators. So, for example, I won't mention any operator, there's larger operators. You might say, well, we'll give you more incentive in this area, but you have to go and provide 100 square metres every kilometre for these throughout our LGA. And in return, we will, there has to be that sort of commercial component to it. We can't just be the ones having to absorb and solve these parking problems, because everything that's been said tonight is valid particularly in relation to the hazards and things, and the fact that they can't be collected in 24 hours. So government might say, oh, you have to pick them up in 24 hours, but yeah, well, what if they don't? we'll use our 20 cents to fill up the ranger's car, and so it's a big problem, but stepping stones. Councillor Barlow.
Yes, I think because I had a policy as well. They do slow them down because there's a girl that rides it to St George Hospital and the bikes stop, literally will not go near the hospital. So they can operate it
The
so
geofencing.
they can do it. But it doesn't matter, like the people are riding them to their home. They're not riding, and then they come back to Carlton Station's a mess at times, in 8 to 10 bikes, and they just throw them all on the footpath. But then they get those bikes and they take them home and they left them on the footpath outside their house, like anywhere. So I don't know how you're going to control that. And I think 20 cents is a joke. And why is the transport going to get more than us when we're the one affected by it? Can we negotiate reverse?
Through you, Chair, they're the ones who are making the rules right now, so
Yeah, I
you
know.
can certainly ask, but that's their proposition.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's...
Yeah,
That's the whole stage.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's anyway. To me personally, they're a nuisance. I don't ride one. Can ride a bike, but they are creating a problem. I mean, the pedestrian council. Anyone that's got a sight problem, they're the ones that are a problem. There's a lady in Bexley Oval was knocked down by a bike being ridden in Bexley Oval, and the young kid, she couldn't get up. She had to ring an ambulance because no one came to help her stand up, and she's 90. Joan, 92, I think. And so there's issues everywhere. So she was lucky she didn't break anything, and the young kid just rode off. So, and that's a personal e-bike, but they're the same problem. So I just feel there needs to be more money, and apparently if you don't log off, I think it continues the fund. I don't know how it works, but to me it's too cheap and it's just being misused.
Is that amount indexed?
I'm not sure, Chair. I imagine that part of it will be in the regulation, like in legislation. So they may put in a indexation.
Maybe just ask.
Well, I don't know.
I'm sure they've maybe thought or not thought of it. Who knows? But 20 cents in 2 years' time is going to be 10. So maybe, just if that's what the base rate is, at least let's make sure for all councils, not just for Bayside, for all councils, that at least we get some indexation on or something.
And sorry, that's 20 cents per...
A trip that originates in Bayside.
See, that's the problem, because I think this is actually worth commenting on, is that we need to get a share of the, if you like, after trip time, because that's the time which is a bother for us and our residents. So it's almost like the actual model needs to change so that, from the time that a bike is stopped, where it's not supposed to be stopped, unless we can geofence it so it can't go up ordinary streets, but from the time it's stopped and put somewhere where it's not supposed to be, to the time it's picked up, that there is some sort of a fine paid per hour.
We're going back to paid parking.
But well, it is. It's like paid parking because they're going to be parking on our nature strips. So, I think the actual revenue model needs to be. We need to make a comment on the revenue model so that there is an incentive to the operator to rent from us spaces on the edges, on
I think
on the corners.
I think it's a good idea. I think at the moment with the state government's working on that. That's sort of a LG New South Wales nom next year or something, because it's really advocating for all councils, not just and I'm sure everyone would be supportive of that. So I think that's more once it's in place as an advocacy.
It is, as you said, baby steps. It's a great thing that people are getting out of cars and using these things, but it does need regulation. But I think having a fine for it being left somewhere, that could just kill the whole business. But I think geofencing is the answer.
Well,
And you can
both.
geofence like if it's on a path or not on a path.
Yeah. Well, both because
Anyway,
it'll
we won't
incentive.
solve all the problems, councillors. So maybe we can put this motion.
The
Councillor
other
Barlow.
thing is I did get a photo from someone at Brighton, and the line people had pulled up in in a no standing zone and emptied their van and put all the bikes on the footpath at outside Coles for everyone else.
They got them from more in front of the houses though, and they put them in front of.
But no, they just put it all, and she couldn't believe it. She sort of took a photo of them, and they had actually unloading the bikes. I've got the photos, unloaded the bikes and left them outside Coles at Brighton.
Fleet redistribution.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, councillors, I'll put the motion before us, the recommendation. All those in favour say aye. I'll declare that carried. Thank you. Now, the next item does have a confidential attachment. Does any councillor have questions on the confidential, or do you want to just no? Okay, so we'll go into that one now, which is 26 CWA 26.032 SS Rock materials supply. Is there a summary that can be provided outside of confidential?
Yep.
Yep, excellent. We'll go into that. Thank you.
Through the chair, this report's about the SS Rock tender for civil construction and demolition waste processing and civil materials. So I've just there's some images of the products, the types of products on the next slide that this tender is all about. So it's pretty much road construction materials, which contains bricks and concrete and asphalt, and that's turned repurposed and turned into road base, generally speaking. So, but for a council's point of view, it's a matter of taking the material to a site that actually repurposes it and sells it back to the community. So the services also is the disposal of stormwater waste and also skip bins. So it's an SS Rock tender, and I think about 13 councils have participated. Bayside Council's current usage for these services. Bayside City Council team heavily utilises the waste disposal portion of the contract to dispose of council's waste and street sweeping operations. Council's service level agreement is to sweep every street within the LGA twice per month, weather permitting. The result is the removal of 970 tonnes of debris and litter from Bayside Council Street that's for the 25-26 financial year. 100% of the Bayside street sweeping waste is sent to recycling facilities where approximately 90% is successfully repurposed into recycled materials such as garden organics, repurposed sand and construction aggregates, assisting to create a circular economy within the waste and construction sector. So with regard, there was 4 categories. The first one was the provision of a waste facility service to receive processing of civil construction materials. Second part was the stormwater and street sweeping waste processing. The third part was supply of civil and road materials, including supply of recycled waste materials. And the last category of the tender was supply of waste collection bins, skip bins. So there was 5. There was 6 tenderers, and each tenderer provided 1 or 2 or 3 of those categories. So the expected outcomes is the security of goods and services, so to achieve consistency, quality and efficient, reliable and timely service. Environmental sustainability, to minimise the disposal of materials to landfill and deliver environmentally responsible and sustainable processing. Services that maximise resource recovery and diversion from landfills. The value aspect is to establish a panel of service providers that provide the best solution for those products and go to market. And the last one is the option. So council have a panel of providers for the services outlined in the tender. Next slide was just pretty much the way that these tenders were evaluated. So 40% was for price, 20% was capability and history and organisational structure. Service standards and delivery methods was 25%, sustainability and environment was 15%, which made the 100% of the criteria and weightings. The contract is for a period of 3 years with an option to extend for 2 by 1. The extension will be subject to satisfactory performance, which will be determined by SS Rock and participating councils. The recommendation is to accept and award a contract to the panel of providers for the tender as described, and that the report is presented at the next council meeting for endorsement.
Thank you. Have a mover for that one, please. Councillor Barlow, seconded Councillor Kasim. Any discussion? It's pretty comprehensive and so we don't have many questions and straightforward. So all those in favour of the recommendation say aye. Aye as well. I'll declare that carried. Thank you. And the last one this evening, CWA 26.033, which is the draft clothing bin policy. If we can have a summary of that one, please.
Sherry?
Sorry, Chair. This is the presentation on the draft closing bin policy. So this year, in response to the notice of motion submitted by Councillor Poulos on the 23rd of April 2025, that Council resolved that Council review and update its closing bin policy, but also in terms of sustainable waste management strategy that adopted by Council in 2024, identified textile as the focus area for greater resource recovery. And the other issue is an ongoing issue with the closing bin is where environmental amenity issues with non-authorised bin on public land and create more illegal dumping. So we go ahead and create a draft closing bin policy with the purpose to regulate closing bin donation bin on council managed land to maximise the resource recovery for the textile. And the scope of the closing bin policy is applied to own bins operator and bins located within council land, council owned or managed land. And exclude the bin within the private property. So the expected outcome for this closing bin policy is where we try to move away from non-authorized closing bin with illegal dumping around the bin is become an eyesore to a more standardized closing bin in a dedicated locations. And it's the whole process will go through a pre-selecting size with the EOI process to go out to on the operator with the compliant requirement and standardize the desired signage standard with reporting and controlling mechanism to make sure that the site neat and tidy and is meet the requirement for resource recovery. At the current stage, staff been looking to the whole LGA and identify 10 locations for to nominate at the site for the closing bin. Some is close or on the existing non-authorized, non-approved closing bin at current stage. So we'll try to see if that commercially viable for the operator. So there's some good reason where the bin currently been there, but we also look into a multiple criteria to select the site to make sure that it's safe for the public. Is in that lighting is in terms of operation, it's easy to do collections. So we look into a multiple criteria there, but we also look into the depot that we currently have, the recycling drop-off events where resident can drop the textile there. So it can be another collection point instead of closed bin with the operator. So we can ask operator to go and collect the textile in council depot. So those locations, it's just proposed locations. at the beginning to start. In the future, if it's successful, then we will update more location if it is suitable for the new site.
There's only two which are council owned.
No, they own is council land.
All the dots are where they are at the moment.
Yes. So the green one is the existing closing bin non-approval on council land.
I think there's more non-approved ones than that. I don't think you've got all the non-approved ones.
Yeah, that's what staff been identified so far. It could be some still out there that we're not aware of. So we talked to Park and Garden team, Waste Services team, just to get those locations identify.
Yeah, so I think it's imperative that we actually have a very detailed map of where they will be situated on an approved sort of basis. So then those that are not placed in the approved locations, you can then take on, or
Yeah.
remove them, or do follow the process that will be set out. Thanks. Oh, you haven't actually finished. We'll leave you.
I just want to stop you when I said
Yep.
the map. Sorry.
So this the recommendation, the key outcome is try to establish a consistent approval framework for closing bin within the council owner managed land. We try to improve the management and maintenance on the standard for the operators, reduce amenity and compliance and illegal dumping issues, and increase access to convenient textile donation location across the Bayside. So recommendation is the executive of the committee to approve and go to next council meeting for endorse of the closing bin policy before we go the AOI to the operator to make the to receive proposal from the operator.
Okay, thank you. We have a mover for that, Councillor Poulos. Seconded, Councillor Kasim. Any discussion, Councillor Poulos?
So thank you very much for the very comprehensive report. I think you've done quite a bit of work with regards to obviously the policy and obviously the framework that's going to be wanted to sort of highlight or request of, and you've sort of touched on it with the map today, is that I think it's imperative that we do have a map of the approved sites for these bins. I think there has to be some sort of a mechanism built into the compliance team, the other teams to identify and to move on the bins that are placed illegally, because as we have, they have been placed illegally. And the main reason why I actually brought this to as a notice of motion was that randomly placed bins that are overflowing with contaminated items, which people are going with goodwill to donate their items, ending up in landfill because they're contaminated, because they're overflowing, and that is for a myriad of reasons, whether they're placed in places where they shouldn't be, or I appreciate that you've taken into consideration the safety of the drop, the location of the bins. I think the pickup and also the appropriate drop off zone, so you can park your car. Obviously they're going to be council land, so ideally in parks or shopping centre precincts would be appropriate. The other thing that I wanted to mention as well is, can we build in some sort of information on the bins where obviously the EOA goes out and it's awarded to the tenderer, that the bin actually does have some sort of messaging on, if you see an unauthorised bin, how to report that. And equally the same, have that on our website as well as like just having instructions on if there are illegally placed bins, how you report that, and obviously going out with some sort of an advertising just to say these are the bins that have been approved within Bayside, because you will get rogue operators, you will get people coming and plonking their bins, even though you do, you know, we set up an arrangement with a particular operator. This is something that I think needs to be, you know, policed in a better way than what we have in the past.
I think there's just on that, it's quite good, the signage and communication in the policy. It's all sort of written there that it's even got to have details of nearby clothing bins on the bin, because if that bin's full, it says, well, there's one here and stuff. So that's really good part of it.
Yeah.
So was there a comment? Hong?
Yes, so that the idea is we try to standardize the signage, and that signage will, when we approve the operator, we will give them the signage that's come from council. So it's on the detail of the operator name, the contact details, the requirement for the operator is clearly identify what been accepted, like what item accepted in these locations, as well as the nearby location where they can go and drop if it's full, or if it's not the right material for that bin. It could be the next available there is different, accepted different item. It depends on the operator. So we try to get that clearly the message of when you go in there, you know that you do the right things there, and help them a clear message of how you can do the right thing for this. Yeah, we can take into account of like how to report the illegal or unauthorized bin as well. So we can take that one, put into the signage.
And one last point, can the councillors be involved in the placement of the bins? So I know that you've got the map out with obviously the most ideal locations now, but can the ward councillors be involved in the potential expanding of those sites? Because 10 bins in the LGA, I'm not sure if that's actually adequate.
Yeah, in terms for the future expansion, yes, we really encourage even the operator can submit their proposal of the new location, and then we got the set of criteria to evaluate, to assess the site, is that suitable size or is not suitable size. So we can use that criteria to assess that site before it's going back to council to approve those sites. So you can councillor can get involved and suggest new locations for the future expansions.
So the current locations listed, have they been publicised? Have we got a list of where they will be, like the first round will be going?
Yes, I can provide the list of the site with the detailed locations and address.
Yeah.
Thank you.
May I just add that to the portal, then we can all access it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Thank you.
So I guess I'm with Councillor Poulos in the sense of saying I think this is great and congratulations, well done on saying the framework for what happens on our land. But the issue is what happens on private land. Because I think that that's where you get a lot of these things being put, and they may not have the same safety, etc., considerations which we're having, and they will actually undermine our beautiful program. So I don't know if that, I mean, it's not really illegal dumping in the sense that it's on private land. It's on private property.
Can't control it.
But I guess that's the question is is there a collaboration with these people so that we work with people who are on private land and we educate them on how to do it better, or, because otherwise I think it will undermine the scheme. That's my only concern. Because it's going to keep going and it exists already.
My view is you can't control people if someone goes and puts a bin. If you walk around here, there's a dozen bins within walking distance here, and they're all on private, commercial or industrial land. We can't do anything. It's behind the fence or behind the fence line, And yeah, there's one at the entrance to Sir Joseph Banks Park that's always,
Yeah.
but it's relatively maintained, but it's old and rusty, but people know it's there, it gets used. But it looks like it might be council, but it's on private land. We can't do anything, unfortunately.
Well, that's a question because I think it does I could potentially undermine the good work which we're going to do.
Councillor Barlow?
I've just got a photo tonight from someone at Wallow Creek Woolworths, overflowing bins.
Yeah, exactly.
And she just sent it to me and said, look at this, what can you do? I said, well, it's not, Woolworths have to fix it up. It's in their park, it's in their.
Chair, if I could just add a comment there. Clothing bins are exempt development under one of the SEPs. So there are some criteria that have to be met, but if they're on private land, they can be done without any need for approval.
Excellent. Okay, so I think it's a great policy. I think, like we talked about in the last one, for me, when we have a policy or a framework, it's never perfect. It's just, we've got this, and it's just that continuous review, whether it's annually or every 5 years, you just try and make things a little bit better each time. I think that's our job strategically. Chip away at it, is absolutely. So the recommendation is that we adopt the draft clothing. So if we adopt the draft, does that mean don't we adopt the policy because it's not a draft anymore? The clothing bin policy? Yeah? Okay. That we adopt the clothing. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. I'll declare that carried and there'll be no further business. I close the meeting at 8:35. Thank you.